Long as needed, short as possible. That is the secret to video length. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they're selling you something.
What matters is your planning. How much time and thought did you put into what you're creating?
The content you create, whatever your video is about, should inform your video length.
Hey everybody, Matt Pierce, Learning and Video Ambassador, here with Andy Owen and Justin Simon. Welcome guys, we're gonna have a great conversation today. We are going to be talking about how long should your video really be? So let's talk about it. So one of the questions we get asked the question all the time about video length, and I think we have some very strong opinions about this, but we're gonna argue some different sides of it because I think, here's the thing, people wanna know because they want something definitive, and they're not happy with our, well, it depends. So let's hash this out and try and think of where we would even start. So let's get your kind of initial first takes. Andy, we'll start with you since you've got the longest time in video. What do you think video length should look like?
Well, it depends. Is that not what I'm allowed to say? Hang on, I'm sorry, I missed the note. Gosh, this is the worst question, and I actually dread getting this question because there's so many variables and no one wants to consider the variables. They just want data. They want information. The video should be 3 to 4 minutes, right? That's the right number. No, it should be 10 to 12 minutes. That's the right number. Well, what's the video about? What content is in the video? How deep of a dive do you want? Is this for social media where we have like a 60-second attention span maximum? Are we doing this in a home video environment? There's so many variables, right? So for me, if I'm doing the YouTube videos that I'm currently putting out, we're putting them around, we've said, I think 3 to 8 minutes. I don't think one of them's gotten to 8 minutes yet. I think we're doing pretty realistically like 4 to 5 minute videos. And even those, people leave comments all the time that say like, slow down, that's too fast. So either they want me to speak more slowly, and I'll try, but this is just the disease of being me. But I think what they really want is I'm showing the material too fast. So if they're looking at this as like it's a tutorial video, maybe they need it a little bit slower, because even though it's YouTube and they could pause it and go back, that's not as convenient as really like following along in the steps. So I don't want to say like it should be a 2-minute video or a 60-second video. If the content is important, then maybe we need to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah. Justin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think for video length, to me, it comes down to what type of video. Video is just the medium, right? Like you could have a full length movie, you could have a short movie, and you could have a social media video, a tutorial video, a YouTube video, different types of YouTube videos. An overview video is going to be much different than a tutorial or another type of marketing video, that might not have to be so long. So I think starting with kind of understanding the why behind that particular video is going to help you determine the length. The other thing you can kind of do too is, the unfortunate reality is unless you've made some, you won't know what works for you. There's some best industry standards. We've even got some research on our end as far as what we have seen with instructional and informational videos, but that is not even dependent on, are those on your site where people are searching you out and their intent is to go watch a video, or are that intent is so much different. If I go to YouTube, I am in mode to watch a video. If I go to a website where I need help, I am in mode to watch a video, probably if I'm looking for a tutorial. If I see a video in my feed, I might stop, but I'm not there in the mode to watch a video. So the content might be good and I might not be the audience if it's longer. But I think that intent in the audience is just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about overall length.
So I want to go back to something that Andy said. I think we can have a robust discussion here about is Andy mentioned attention span, and I want to talk about attention span because I think a lot of this we're conflating and saying attention span is the thing that should determine the length of your video. If you're making an instructional video, and something to tie this together, I think to what you said, Justin, is if you're on YouTube looking for a video, you're looking for information. And I loved what someone on our team said today. They said, the algorithm of YouTube doesn't determine learning. Like you can't, the algorithm doesn't know if you're going to learn from something. And you do, you're going to go in there. But let's talk about attention span, because I'm sure anyone listening's heard the attention span about the goldfish, right? How many have you guys heard this? That like
Yep.
we have less. Our attention spans are now less than a goldfish, which is utter and complete BS, if I can say.
Yeah.
I'll be bold enough to say, right? Like, so what is the role of attention here in terms of length of video, attention spans? Does it matter? Do we care?
Yeah, I think the I was gonna say the problem with determining attention span is now we've added new variables, right? Like, okay, who's our audience? Is our audience people in the working world, right? The workforce. So these are people who are Gen X, maybe baby boomers, maybe I'm gonna forget all the names of the generations, but the older generations, right? Like we're not talking about Gen Z. Millennials are part of that, but like, so some of that audience will have a longer attention span, but the other part of that audience will have a shorter attention span. Like, who am I making these videos for?
I mean, I would even say too, like that is so. I wouldn't even. Yeah, I wouldn't even put it in like a generational stance because I think it honestly good content wins, and maybe that's too broad, but I think there's even we were just talking about this yesterday, Andy, and some of our videos, as far as the video itself. Within the video, you have to keep the attention span
right
within the topic that you might be interested in, right? These little cues here and there that keep me moving and keep me understanding what's going on. It's if you kind of look at I forget what it is in sort of the traditional television sense. Is it like a commercial every 8 minutes or something like that for like a 30-minute show? Just enough to where you're really watching like 3 mini shows within the one show. It's not like I'm sitting down and watching 30 minutes straight, no cuts. And they film them that way so that your brain kind of can get that reset.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to share an example. I think that goes to what you're saying, Justin. Good content is going to win out the day. And this is a number of years old now, so the data is, maybe it's not as relevant today. Things change. I want to be aware of that. But we had a video. It was an instructional video that one of our instructional designers, Ryan Aish, created, and it was 30 minutes of how he makes videos for TechSmith. And if you would have asked anyone, like, is 30 minutes a good length of video? Everyone would probably, even now, everyone would say, no, that's too much. It's too long. But man, if that video didn't perform super well, because it fit a few criteria. And our research out there, we should probably link to here in the show notes or whatever, that talked about one of the reason people stop watching is it's not relevant. And if you are interested in something, so I got into I'm in a new groove. I don't want to call it hobby because I don't think it's a hobby, but I've learned how to sharpen knives with a whetstone because our kitchen knives are terrible. But do you know how many 10 to 20 minute videos I've watched about sharpening knives on a whetstone? Too many. And mostly I'm frustrated because I'm not getting, I'm still figuring out the technique and they're not showing me necessarily new things, but I watch them because I'm interested. I want to do this thing. And so I think it's really interesting to me that we conflate attention to say, like, if, we forget about the other factors I think are way more important. Is it good content? Is it relevant to my needs? Is it going to solve a problem that I have? Is it going to make me better looking, earn more money, kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or is it just going to entertain me? And that, I firmly believe that the limit is not based on, it shouldn't be about attention. You can gain attention, you can earn attention, but at the end of the day, that's hard to do. And so that's why I think longer videos fail.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. I think there's sort of, I guess it's a little bit of a trope at this point, but there are particular podcasts out there that are, 3+ hours. There are podcasts out there, and again, audio a little bit different than video here, but podcasts out there that are 5 minutes. It's the same thing with a video, and both can be extremely successful. So I think it's just trying to figure out, again, why that is. And to your point, Matt, with the relevancy, if there's something I'm interested in learning, or somebody who's entertaining, YouTube or somebody like that you're interested in watching, you'll sit there and watch more and more and more and more until you either learn the knowledge because you're interested in it, right? Like the video length, sometimes like I'll be done listening to a podcast that's an hour and 40 minutes and I'm like, man, I wish there was double that. Like I'm just interested in more of it. So I think there is something in that. If the content's good and it's interesting, you might have people actually asking you for longer content.
Yeah. Well, it's weird too. We have, we have the webinars that our team has produced in the past for getting started with Camtasia, getting started with Snagit, and we put a couple of them on YouTube. And I had no bearing for like how well these are going to do. It's an hour-long webinar that's not live anymore. It's now in post and published. And those videos are cranking on YouTube. Right now, I think it's at, nearly 30,000 views for getting started with Camtasia. And the watch time is at 4,500 hours. Like, it's this massive amount of time that people are spending on it, which means not only are they starting it, but they're watching through this hour-long video because that's what they're there for. They showed up to get like started with our software, so it makes sense for them to find it. Whereas if we advertised it as like, I don't know, something else entirely, then they're not gonna land in the right content. So the content matters. The title for it matters. We say it's getting started with Camtasia 2019. It's from last year, or oh man, that's more than last year now. And has like the content they're looking for. It's literally a walkthrough of how to get started. So yeah, people will show up for the content they're looking for. So if it's an hour long, that's fine.
So I was going to switch and ask a question because I'm guilty of this. How many of either of you made the judgment call about a video because of the length of time, though? Have you said, I'm not gonna click on that because it looks too long for what I'm trying to do?
So I had this happen to me a long time ago. Like when I first, and I say like a long time ago, it was really like 2016 probably, when I started getting into Casey Neistat, who's famous YouTuber. When I started getting into his vlogs, I remember looking at them at that time and going, 10 minutes? I'm not going to watch a 10-minute video of a day in his life. And also, who edits 10 minutes of your daily grind into a video? Like, this is not. But of course, the content was good and it was interesting, and I kept watching like a sucker. And I wanted more of it, right? And so the fact that it was a daily vlog, I was there for it. So I almost did turn away because to me, 10 minutes at that time was too long. I was producing videos that were 3 to 5 minutes, and even sometimes shorter because I didn't have the attention span for it. Just the other day, I was watching Roger Wakefield's plumbing videos on YouTube, and actually, it was a longer one. I really enjoy them, even though I'm not looking for plumbing solutions. It's just really interesting to me sometimes. And he had one that was 23 minutes long, and the only reason I hesitated wasn't because of the content, but it was because I knew at 23 minutes long, I'm going to get fed ads, like a number of YouTube ads. I'm like, do I really want to sit through clicking past all these ads? Because now it's a little more of I got to stay on this page and make sure to hit skip ad all the time. But like I'll watch it if it's good. So I didn't turn away from it, but yeah, it definitely gives you pause if you see a longer video. If you're thinking like, oh, this will be a quick, best 5 things in the world of plumbing. I don't know, whatever it is.
I think it's if you have time for it, right? Like most of the time at least, I don't know, for me, I've got my phone. That's usually when I'm watching little YouTube videos here and there. It's just when I've got some downtime and I'm going to just sit there and kind of see what's new. And so a lot of that, but with that too, right? Like I know I can always go back and finish it later as well. So I can start it if it's good and go back and watch it after the fact. The thing I want to say about lengthen video, which we haven't touched on, and I know Andy and I have had this discussion in the past when we started rolling out YouTube videos, in particular around video length, was if you make, especially in regards to YouTube, and this is a little bit of like hacking YouTube here, so it might get into the weeds, but if you want, YouTube's number one goal is to get people to stay on YouTube. And the same thing is for your site, right? Like you want people on your site longer. The more they're there, the more they're going to interact, right? So if you have a 30-minute video and they watch 50% of it, they've watched 15 minutes. If you have 5 whatever that would be, like 5 3-minute videos, that's the equal amount of time that the person is going to have to consume that content. So it's just a different way of thinking about how to distribute that content as well, right? Like maybe it's actually more efficient if you can give them a nice big long 1-hour webinar that they can sit down and consume and piece together, rather than have to try to hunt and find the 10 2 to 3 minute tutorials that I know you've got somewhere, and now I've got to try to find them and piece them together. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that.
Well, I just want to say the interesting difference here is what you said, Justin, from and very clear from a marketing perspective, right? Your goal is to get people to your site and to stay there, same as YouTube. Whereas a lot of people who are probably listening to this are saying, "Well, I'm not a marketer. I want to help people. I need them to I need them to perform. I need them to do something." And it's like, but it changes the equation a little bit.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think it goes back to, I think what Andy, you were saying, like that, some of that setup, right? Like, what is it that, like, if I come into a training video and I see it's 30 minutes long, and we've done this internally at TechSmith, right? Like, we know got these training courses. Give me the context and give me the reason. I'm really passionate today, guys. I'm sorry if I'm angry, pounding my fist. Give me the reason for wanting to watch that. Like, give me, like, how does this, again, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Is it going to eat me? Can I eat it? Are there other things I can do with it? Is it going to benefit me? Is it going to give me a better job? Is it going to save my life? Is it going to help me perform my job so I can get recognized? Like, whatever it is I'm looking for, like, and I know that's really hard because we can't always quantify videos in that sense. Like, if you're making an onboarding video, it's kind of like, well, no, you just need to understand this because your job depends on it. But even that in itself is compelling, right? And I know, Andy, you're working with a new employee. Like, Katie needs to know this stuff. Like, if she doesn't know this cultural thing, she could become a bad actor. Not that she would, but
that's a great point, Matt, because I do think, a lot of the times when we're making marketing videos, a lot of the content that we create, yes, we absolutely want to help people, but most of the time we understand that it's helping them because they're looking for that thing. The intent is like, I'm ready for this content. Whereas if it's employee training or internal training or onboarding or required course viewing, right? Like, that's a whole different ballgame in terms of video length and what somebody is looking for out of that video. So I agree 1,000%. It definitely matters, and it matters to get that stuff up front to help understand why I need to watch this. Otherwise, like, oh my gosh, 30 minutes of this.
Yeah. Well, we even have our own, at TechSmith, like, we even have corporate training. Every company has training you have to go through, right? Whether it's security training or HR required training, that's kind of like the yearly renewal stuff. And having just gone through that not too long ago now, like, if I think to it, it's like each section is really broken up by small chunks because it's boring. And so if it's not great and engaging content, but I know it's like thrust upon me, I have to do this, I have a deadline, I have to watch it by, well, at least it's broken up, right? So, like, I've watched a 3-minute section, then I answered like a 2-second quiz, of what I just watched. Then I go through and watch a 1-minute section. And then so it's like, it at least varies it up. So if we're doing some kind of required training, yes, it's going to be a totally different intent than if we're trying to edutain, right? We're doing that educational tutorial content that's actually interesting to watch and someone has searched it out. So yeah, this goes back to intent. This goes back to desire. Like, do I want to watch this versus do I have to watch this?
And I think too, to tie it back into conversations we had before with like scripting the actual videos themselves, I wouldn't suggest trying to like lengthen the intros and try to expound upon what we're talking about. You want to get in and make sure people understand what you're talking about and get into the meat of the content. So I think that's where a little bit of that sort of Goldilocks effect of the length of your video starts to play in, where don't sit here and listen like, oh man, I got to make every tutorial 30 minutes. Like, that's not the case either. Hopefully what you're coming out is trying to find the different nuances between those different video types. But yeah.
Well, I was thinking, Justin, one of the things that, as you said that, like, you don't want to expound on it in the video. It's that what I've been calling my mantra lately is as long as needed, short as possible. And remember, most videos don't just live as a video in a blank page. There's context. There's things you can do around the video. So if, like that, the reason of like giving people like the kind of the cause of why should you take this video, that doesn't have to be in the video. We don't have to tell you in the video. We can put that in the title. We can give you hints in the thumbnail. We can put it in the description. We can do all these different things to give really good information. But I think you're right. Like, it's the Goldilocks effect is there's so many things that are going to feed into that. And it's, your video, Justin, that you make maybe completely different, have different set of parameters than what Andy makes, and compared to like what I'm making based on the 3 different purposes we might have.
Yeah. I would even like Justin brought up a really good point too, which is like don't necessarily lengthen the intro just to make it better. We offered that script template in a previous episode where it was you've got your intro, we've got our problem statement, our solution statement, and then you get into like points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then your outro. Well, it's in that meat that the points of your video that you want to, if you're going to lengthen anything, lengthen. And if you can't anymore, if you're now just repeating yourself too much or not really focusing on the point of the video, what's the point of this video? And am I talking about it? Because I have a habit of doing this. Justin's had to go through my script sometimes and be like, Andy, nobody cares about this factual, or this historical fact about this topic. Like, get rid of that and get back to the meat. and I care about it, but obviously that's not the point of the video. So yeah, oh, absolutely. And I love it, that stuff. I love that stuff. But like, is that the point of the video that I'm making for this YouTube project, right? So then it comes back to saying, am I still talking about this point number 1, or do I need to move on to point number 2? Because if I'm going to lengthen anything, it's going to be how to do X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, I'm just off in the weeds and trying to lengthen the video to work on the algorithm, and that doesn't work. Like that doesn't help anybody. Now they're going to click away because they're either bored or disengaged. So yeah, the only reason you should be lengthening or shortening the video is, in my mind, based on the content, not on because someone said it should be X long.
Right. And I think the other thing too, as I'm thinking about this as like the presenter of the video, is if you're passionate and excited throughout the video, or, allowing your audience to sort of, I guess, what I'm trying to say is you don't want to be dull. A short, dull video is bad, and a long, dull video is bad. We've all been through presentations. Like, we can all sort of understand what this looks like and feels like. Maybe we can't maybe you guys can describe it better than I can, but I don't think, I don't think the length of the video is just one factor, is I guess what I'm saying. There's a lot of factors that tie into what make it successful, and video length is just one of them. If you have a short video that's doesn't hit the points you hit, like you talked about, Andy, not good. If you have a long video that's boring, not good. It's trying to like hit all of these right sort of ingredients for a successful video.
So what I'm hearing, Justin, is every video should be no longer than 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Perfect. Great. Thank you for that.
You got it. I would say like 3 minutes and 13, but yes, absolutely.
Well, before we wrap up and we have our final say, I did want to, we are obviously I think of a kind of an agreement here about, we've had a lot of conversations about video length. I do, for just a minute or two, I do want to, let's take some counterpoints here. I don't know how we want to divide this, but what if we had to argue for longer videos, or if we had to argue for shorter videos? What would you say to someone? And maybe that doesn't make sense. We can totally skip that, because guys, we can edit this out. But I'm curious, because I mentioned here in the chat before we started that there was some interesting conversation happening on social media based on a presentation I gave, and I mentioned video viewer preferences that we found at TechSmith from some research that we did. And, 26% of people said I think it was 3 to 4 minute long videos. And another 26% of people said, 4 to 6 minute videos. And then still a bunch of people said 7 to 9. So it's incredible, but some people are arguing no, that can't be right, because, no one could pay attention that long. And some people were like, well, no, I make longer videos and it's great. So I'm curious, what would you say to someone who they're arguing that the videos should always be short, and then we'll take the one if their videos no, longer videos are great. How would we take those on? Yeah,
and it might be helpful to, maybe we'll narrow this down to how to educate, informational type videos, right? Cause that's where a lot of our framing is at. So, an argument for longer videos, in this case, I would say the argument would be is if you have a detailed process that you need to walk somebody through, and there are a lot of intricate parts to being able to show off how that is, longer, more detailed is actually much better than a quick high level overview. A great example of this is I like to monkey on my car every now and then. I'm not a mechanic by any means, but I like to kind of play with those things. And you could see 2 different videos about how to do a particular thing, change a tire on a car. And one could be 2 minutes. Get the jack once it's up. Now you're good. Take off the bolts, put your new tire on. Or you could see somebody actually show you how to use the jack and jack up your car, and then how to use this is the tool. There's a whole bunch of tools you can, and it's more built out for the entire process to show somebody how to actually get that thing done, even though both videos show you how to change a tire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think similarly, I think we've all seen, this is a big assumption, those cooking videos that are shot, from above, looking down into a bowl, and people are just throwing ingredients in, and there's text on screen, and they're like 30 to 60 seconds long sometimes of cooking this entire delicious dinner. Well, there's also a show on the Food Network, that might do the same thing in 15 to 30 minutes. Which one's better? If you want more detail, if you want more description, if you want kind of an understanding of why the chicken does that when you butterfly cut it, if you want much more understanding, then you're going to go for the longer content. If you just want, in and out, give me the information, show me how to do it, then shorter might be the way to go. But for this longer one, you're going to get a lot more understanding.
Yeah, I love both those examples, and I think what I'm hearing and kind of summarizing this thought is it's really about where you're trying to meet your audience. Like, what is it that you're trying to give your audience in these instructional videos? Because frankly, I've watched some of those 30, 60-second videos, and I just felt frustrated. I felt like I missed stuff. But at the same time, I've watched really long videos and felt like, oh my gosh, could you please just move on? I don't care about that. I just want to see, how do I do this thing, right? But the other thing we haven't talked about here, and I don't want to get too far in this because I know we're short on time and I want to get to our final takes, is we can't control the viewing experience. We can't control, ultimately, I mean, there's things you could turn on and off depending on your player, but like, I watch a lot of instructional videos at 1.5 speed. Did the creator intend for me to do that? Probably not. However, they can't control me. They can't stop me from doing that, yet I can consume that information so much faster. So I might choose a 15-minute video and watch it in 12 minutes, or I can skip things around. So I think that, my kind of thought is like, short, long, know your audience, know the intent that Justin talked about at the very beginning. Focus on what detail you want to give, as Andy just said. And man, if you do those things, you're going to make the right length of video. You're going to focus on the right thing. And then I think we talked about this in script writing. I hope we talked about this in script writing. Be merciless. Cut everything that doesn't need to be there, right? Cut that, like and I can only ever think of the TechSmith Academy example that I did I wrote the script on lighting. Justin, I had a whole section about the history of the word gaffer. And it was awesome. Black Mariah, Thomas Edison. It was glorious. We never recorded it.
It was great.
The B-side.
Just cut it because it wasn't actually helpful.
No.
So,
but it was great content, but not for that purpose, right? Like, again, this is me and you. Like, we love the history of this stuff. We love the understanding of where it came from, how it's evolved, but it didn't train someone on how to do the thing. It just it didn't work.
But you could see where that might work if your audience was, in fact, interested in that topic. It just might need to be a separate video that then anybody who is interested in that topic would watch all the way to the end because you've thought of your audience.
I want to know how many people just Googled Black Mariah.
If you guys want to learn about the history of the term gaffers, email me at thevisuallounge@textbook.com.
I got to Google gaffer. I don't even know what this is.
If we can get, let's set a goal here. If we can get 30 people to email me at thevisuallounge@textbook.com asking for that, we'll do a special episode about the history of the term gaffer and Black Mariah.
Absolutely.
I don't know that will be long, but we can talk about it. I'll pull out the script.
Yeah. That'll be a real content length moment too. Well, that was a 3-minute video.
Well, before we get our final take, one last thing here. I just want to say, if you're listening to the podcast and you are enjoying what you're hearing, you want to hear more of it, leave us a like or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you are. If you're on YouTube, do the same, because leave a comment. We'd love to get that information, get your feedback. We'll take comments too, actually. If you leave a comment about that topic, I'll put together a special episode. But with that said, I think we need to roll into our final takes about video length. Great conversations today. So, you know what? I'm going to start this one off, and I'll let one of you guys have the final words. How about we go me, and then Andy, and then Justin for our final take. So my final take: long as needed, short as possible. That is the secret to video length. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they're selling you something, because here's the thing. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the intent, the purpose that your audience is going to, and they need to understand that intent that you're trying to have, because if they don't understand what your goal is, they're not going to buy into it. But if you can give them really good information of why this is valuable, why it's important, why they should stick with you, the chances of them watching it are great. And the reality is, they still may not watch it, and that can be okay too, because they might have gotten the piece from that video that they needed versus everything that you provided. Andy.
Yeah. It should be exactly 3 minutes long, and let me sell you on why this should be. No, it's absolutely doesn't matter how long it is. It matters how good it is. It can be terrible as a short video. It can be terrible as a long video. It can be great as a short video. It can be great as a long video. What matters is your planning. How much time and thought did you put into what you're creating? You know, sometimes we've talked about some of these longer videos where maybe we're going to talk about video pre-production, production, and post-production in one video. Well, that's going to be a pretty long video. So maybe I'm going to split that up into 3 sections, or maybe I'm going to just have one long video. It depends how good the content is and how interesting it is to watch. So it's a big variable, and like Matt said, anyone who tells you an exact number is trying to sell you something.
Actually 2 minutes that it's supposed to be. No, I think for me, the content you create, whatever your video is about, should inform your video length. It's that simple to me. So again, two questions. What do your viewers need to know when you're actually making this video, right? So if they need more in-depth information about a particular topic, don't make a 3-minute video, make a 10-minute video or a 15-minute, whatever it needs to take. And then always be thinking, how can you, in the most efficient way, present that information, and then let that guide how long your video is.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Andy. Thanks, Justin. That's our final take. We will see you guys next time. See you later.